And we're back, folks. Welcome to another episode of AFW2's Blue and Beyond podcast. This month, we have Chief Master Sergeant Jason David, who had the absolute pleasure of speaking with the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Bob Gaylor. Let's listen in and see what they had to say.
My name is Chief Master Sergeant Jason David. This week, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing the 5th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant Bob Gaylor. So welcome to the show today, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, and it's great to be back with you. I think this is at least my third engagement. I think you have a great program, and you are very easy to talk and be with, and I'm looking forward to another session.
I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation as well. I am a little starstruck, not just because you have the galaxy background going on, Chief Gaylor, but the fact that you are still engaged. I mean, you are still quite young and limber as far as being in the social media spheres. I'm thankful that you're still willing to give just as much as you did when you were active duty.
Well, I don't have any secrets. The old comedian George Burns he lived to be 100. He said, if I wake up, I shave. So I just take a day at a time, and I'm feeling good. I've got a great family. I'm able to drive and get around. This is the first year I've never been able to do my own lawn work. That got too difficult. So I now hire a guy. I always enjoyed doing it. My name's on the mailbox is one of my stories.
I appreciate that. Hey, so Chief Gaylor, you were introduced to the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program a little bit last year as far as what we do, why we do it, and the purpose of trying to educate airmen that there is support and help when you need it, especially when it comes time where your patience, maybe your stress level, and your resiliency is challenged. So in your eyes, what are your thoughts on AFW2, the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program?
Well, I think it's magnificent, or pick whatever superlative you want. We send our men and women off to foreign lands to engage enemy and potential enemy and keep people from becoming enemies. And things happen. Wounds occur, fatalities occur. Stress levels are exceeded. There's no question. War is not a Hollywood type thing. It's ugly. It's terrible, and people are affected. Well, then frequently we pat those people on the back and bring them back home, and it's somewhat easy to sort of forget about them, to write them off, and okay, that's over with, and that's the bad side of it. We are obligated, required. We have no choice but to provide care for those people. So I think what you're doing is an outreach, no question. I think it's a very active program of saying, hey, we're here for you. Here we are. There are people that are willing and able to provide you support and resilience and guidance and direction, and listen to your comments. I think it's an obligation, and I further think you're doing it very well. From what I've seen and talking to people all the way from Georgia to Alaska to the Philippines that are active in your program, I just sit back and applaud.
I appreciate those thoughts, Chief. And to further your comment, I know that the cadre, so I'm an ambassador myself, and I have received services from the cadre that is AFW2. And I can tell you that they literally take the phrase "leave no airman behind" very seriously. So even if they don't necessarily return an airman to duty, which is ultimately one of the goals of the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, even as that transition occurs and someone exits military service through medical separation or even medical retirement, the support doesn't end there. Most of our alumni, maybe half of our alumni, they're not even active duty Guard or Reserve anymore. They're on the outside, but they still have a place within our family, within the doors of AFW2, virtual or likewise.
Well, that's very important. And now, with availability of technology, and we can outreach, it seems, in a much easier fashion now. Whereas in my early day, it had to be one-on-one or over a telephone or something. But I just think you're taking full advantage of the technological opportunity to make sure that we are available to those who need us. Jason, at USAA, after I'd been there about 4 or 5 years, the CEO, General McDermott, called me in. He said, I want you to serve as a corporate ombudsman. And I'm not sure I was familiar with that term. And he went on to explain that I was sort of the employee's court of last resort, that when they had an issue and they felt that no one was interested or wanted to address it any further, that's where I came into play. And he stressed to me that I was non-management, that I could. He even said, you can bypass executives between you and me. You can knock on my door if you feel that's necessary. So, and then he stressed, Jason, that there was no title or no office or no pay raise that went along with it. So he was asking me to do, in addition. I took it as a compliment. Apparently, he felt that I was the right person to provide that catharsis. And so, well, it was announced in the weekly paper, new corporate ombudsman. And people would ask, what do you do? I said, I just ombuzz around, if somebody wants to see me. So a lot of times people would call me, and I never asked them over the phone, what is the issue? What do you want to see me about? I would make an appointment. And so it was fascinating when they appeared before me and I looked in their eyes to say, what did you feel I could help you with? I never knew what was going to come out of their mouth because it was the first engagement. Believe it or not, I did 18 ombuds in my first year, and I stayed in that position for 8 or 10 years. But anyway, here's one of the points I wanted to make. I would have people come to see me, and they would start ventilating and sharing their issue. And basically, I would say, oh, and then what? Oh, And after 30 minutes, some of them would say, thank you so much for helping me. They just wanted somebody to listen to them. They wanted to see the words they were feeling inside. So sometimes that's a process to provide an ear that appears to be concerned and willing to help and willing to listen. So that was a great experience for me. And when I retired from USA, the CEO paid me a supreme compliment. He said, of all the issues Bob Gaylor handled as ombudsman, not a one made it out of the building into a legal process. So he gave me credit for warding off any employee situation where they felt even the ombudsman didn't help them. So I've had that experience. That's what y'all are, you're ombudsmans. I understand it came from Sweden back in the 1600s, where the king of Sweden felt that there were gaps between the people and his position and that they were unwilling to bother him. So he created a spokesperson that he called the ombudsman. So I've had experience, and I've had some very, believe it or not, I had one where a lady said the assistant vice president of my area chased me around his desk and tried, that. So I had some interesting situations.
Well, I am glad that you have shared similar scenarios and where you were able to help and to heal, even with the power of just listening. So, Chief Gaylor, I guess my next question, because that's a lot of the things that are available in the AFDW program, as far as support is concerned, ties to resiliency, whether it is through support programs, through the caregiver program where we help our families, help our wounded warriors, and or resiliency programs for the warriors themselves. But it's a healing process. And a lot of that healing process is talking it out, letting people understand what you're going through and sharing those experiences with people who have similar experiences or at least can empathize with what you're going through. In your many years of government service and service to this nation, through a myriad of jobs that you've had, what are some of your best tips for helping to heal?
I think you just said one of the magic words is to listen. In 1970, if I recall, about then, somebody wrote a book, I'm Okay, You're Okay. And he had a chapter in there on listening. And when I read it, I thought, well, my gosh, over the years, I've been a great hearer, but not a very good listener. And so I actually enrolled in a listening course, and I found out immediately there's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is allowing spoken word or any noise to come into your ear process. Listening is hard work. Listening is pondering, considering, reflecting, and looking, examining. And to do that, you have to listen to what the person is saying. I think a lot of people are so busy thinking, what am I going to say next when they shut up, that they don't listen. But I really think, not bragging, but I became a better listener at that time. And I think when I added that to my leadership inventory, I became a better leader. So like I said a moment ago, a lot of time I just say, oh, and then what? Please go on. And then what did you do? So by listening, I began to gather the accurate data that I needed to address the issue. So I don't know, you'd have to do a survey or a poll and ask, is Bob Gaylor a good listener? But I think I am. I listen to people, if the word is intently, but I listen to what they're saying, and yeah. So there is a talent there.
So my previous conversations with you have always been things that bring smiles to my face, because I like that you have stories that aren't overly complicated for my brain to understand, and it's very easy to listen to you talk, especially because you've got the humble hero spirit about you. I would like to ask you, what is a situation that you have found yourself in over the many years that you've been a part of the Air Force culture and the Air Force system, that you found yourself with an airman that had a problem that was the hardest to solve? And it could have been when you were a first line supervisor, a senior non-commissioned officer, or even Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force number 5.
Well, if you hang around long enough and you're in a supervisory position, you're going to have situations occur that momentarily might stun you, but then you take a step back and address them. When I was the provost sergeant in Korat, Thailand, and Staff Sergeant McMillan came in and he said, the new airman has arrived, and today's his first day, Airman Gray. Oh, I want to meet him if he's going to work in my close surround. So Gray came in, two-striper. And I got up from behind the desk and sat beside him, extended my hand, and the words that came out of my mouth was, where are you from? Where did you enlist? Where did you grow up? A standard easy question. He said, I'm not sure that matters. Well, that'll momentarily take you back. So my mind said, well, what do you like to do when you're off duty? What are some of your hobbies? And he said, I'm not sure that's any of your business. Well, now there are two questions, and he flabbergasted me. I'm sitting right beside the young airman. And then there was a long gap. I thought, well, no sense asking him something else. And then he said, I know what you're getting at, Chief. He said, you're trying to welcome me aboard. He said, but let me say this to you. I do my job. What I do off duty is my business. I said, great, that's good enough for me. Welcome aboard. Get out of here. And I remember I went back behind my desk going, what was that?
That must have been interesting.
That's a showstopper. Well, he did pretty good work. And so I just, after a week or so, I walked by his desk. He sat at a typewriter. And I didn't even stop, but as I passed, I said, that was a good report you typed yesterday, Gray, and kept going. I don't know if he even answered. And I did that, good report. You're doing a good job, Gray. But I always kept going. I didn't want to hear his response. Good job, Gray. And I left long before he did because I was into my tour. And he knocked on my door and he said, Chief, can I talk to you for a minute? He said, I was a little rude with you when I first arrived. He said, I want to explain that in my last assignment, I had a supervisor who I felt was nosy and prying into my personal life. And I made up my mind my next assignment, I wasn't going to allow that to happen. But he said, Chief, I would work for you anytime, any place, anywhere. Thank you, Gray. And then my mind, I wanted to say, get the hell out of here. I'm not sure I'd want him working for me again because that's sort of an abrupt personality. But I just tell the story to show how to deal with unusual situations. You don't lose your cool and fly off the handle. You say, okay, let me give this some thought and see if I can somewhat play by your rules in addition to mine. I had a tech sergeant, believe it or not, Jason, who, when I gave him his performance appraisal to read, because in the 50s, the recipient had to initial that the rating had been explained to them. So I gave it to him to read and initial, and he wadded it up and threw it at me. And it hit me in my lap and rolled under my desk. And he walked out and slammed the door. Now, take a second. That's just happened to you. One of your subordinates that you just rated wadded up a performance appraisal and threw it at you and slammed the door. What would you do? I remember first thing I crawled under the desk and tried to but you can't press out a wadded up piece of paper. And then I thought to myself, he's not supposed to do that. I don't think he should. Well, so I've had some, you hang around long enough, you're going to have some unusual situations. But here's a point, I think when that happened, I'm trying to demonstrate here, you have to maintain the related positions. You go down to their level, the odds are you'll lose because they can say things that really might sting you that you can't say. You can't say to the kid, you're a big dummy and I hate you. Yeah. So you maintain your, same way with the parent and children. You don't go down to their level, you maintain. Well, that's not always easy because you and I have feelings just like everyone else. We get angry and what have you. So it's not easy, but it comes from conscious, trying to be aware of your behavior. I think that's the role of a counselor, is to try to restore consciousness to the person they're working with. One of the people soliciting your aid, trying to bring them back to the reality of things, because it would appear initially that their mind is out there in some other foreign world to them and they're not sure how to cope with them. So I think through questioning and listening and discussion, you try to bring them back to the world of reality, even though it may be painful.
I like your perspective, especially when you talked about the first troop that was kind of guarded when he first arrived, underneath your leadership, and didn't want to disclose anything about his past because he didn't want to be judged the same way he was at his former assignment. And I think there's a little to unpack from your leadership lesson there, and it's don't bully people into what you want. You gave the young man enough time, if not a lot of time, to come to his own natural conclusions. And eventually he stepped through your doorframe and apologized for being rude to you. You did give him support, but you never nagged him on and tried to infuriate him to the point where he felt that he was still at his last assignment. And there's something golden about that. It didn't benefit you whatsoever, not as a work center supervisor, but it did benefit him.
That's a wonderful. You nailed it. That's right in line. That my stand. Listen, there are two words that we use and maybe confuse, but they're different: empathy and sympathy. And we need to make sure we keep those separated. Empathy is, I hear your issue, I'm concerned about it, I want to help you, but I'm not going to make it my personal issue. Sympathy is, I hear your problem, I'm aware of it, and at this moment, I'm going to join you in your sadness. Like when loss of life, you express sympathy. Empathy, I remember there was a delightful lady who worked at USA, Gladys was her name, and one night I was riding down the escalator, and Gladys was on the escalator in front of me. Hi, Gladys, always nice to see you. How did your day go? Oh, Bob, she said, I had two people late for work. I had one that didn't do what I told him to do. And she recited a couple people in her unit that misbehaved. Well, she's carrying the weight of these on her shoulder. I swear to you, if you see those people, they're on their way to happy hour to get a drink. I believe, make sure it's clear who owns the problem. What Gladys has to do is say to people late for work, that's not one of your choices. Yeah, you have to be on time. And what do you plan to do about your tardiness? What do you plan to do about it? I found in counseling, I would ask, what do you feel you could do that would resolve this? And they might say, well, I can't think of anything. Okay, let's just sort of pursue that. And I tell long stories, but let me see if I can make it. Kid came to see me, young man. He came to my desk, which was in the middle of we had stalls. And way back in the corner by the window was a small round table and two chairs. So I said to the young man, come with me, give us a bit of privacy and take us away from the noise. We get back to this round table, sort of away from everything. And I looked him in the eye and said, what can I help you with? Well, he started out rather slow, but as he picked up, impetus, my gosh, he for at least 20 minutes, it just seemed that the bottom was falling out of his life. His job, his supervisor, his outside life. I just sat there and listened. I thought, my gosh, that's more problem than anyone should have. So he finished, and I'm thinking, what am I going to say? I couldn't think. His problems were so thorough, I couldn't think of what to say. So I said, look out. We were on the third floor of USA. Look out the window and tell me what you see. He said, what? I said, look out the window and tell me what you see. He said, I see the windows are dirty and need cleaning. I said, okay. Look beyond that. what do you see? And he's looking at me like, where are you going with it? He said, the bushes need trimming. They're rubbing against the window. I said, look beyond that. What do you see? He said, I see the parking lot is crowded. USAA needs more parking. And I said, look beyond that. I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm on a roll now. He said, I see I-10 leading to downtown San Antonio, and there's a lot of traffic. Look beyond that. He said, what the hell do you want me to see? Because I guess, I said, I have no idea. I said, I don't know what I want. I said, but somewhere beyond all that is your future. The windows can be cleaned with a squirt of Windex. The bushes can be trimmed. We can build additional parking, but your future's out there. And that's where you have to go. What do you want? What do you want to do? What do you want to happen? And what do you have to do to it? And he left. He gave me the look like, I don't know if this was a waste of time. But I had a couple more sessions with him. But here's the end of the story. He would see me in the hall. And when he saw me, because the hallways were always crowded, he'd sort of stop and he'd go, my future's out there. My future's out there. And I'd say, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. He said, things are falling in place. Well, you count that as a win. But sometimes you got to joust with windmills. I don't know. Yeah. What do you want to do?
I dig it. And I love the fact that even though you probably didn't know 100% where that conversation was going with that young man, I think you had something, because, good leaders like yourself always have a seed, right? And we plant the seed within our subordinates and our troops and the folks that we want, because we want it to bloom and to turn into, that lesson that we're trying to teach them.
Well, you hope something sane will come to you. I like it when he said, what the hell do you want me to see? Like, how many times are you going to keep asking that?
Well, I think it was definitely a good way to show the person that was focused on all the little things in life, what perspective looks like. And it's hard to explain what perspective looks like without giving infinite examples, which you did. And to the end where sarcastically he'll say to you when he sees you, my future, he's laughing about it, but he took a lesson out of what you were saying.
I'll give you a little a poem. I don't know where I got it, but I like it. In any matter controversial, my perception is always fine. I always see both points of view, the one that's wrong and mine.
That sounds something very familiar to me.
Yeah, we have to be careful that we don't force our perception. I think in counseling, you have to be careful not looking for instant cure. Okay, take this with a glass of water and all your problems will be over. I think you have to realize that if a person thinks they have a problem, even if they don't, they have a problem because they think they have a problem. So I think we have to keep that in mind.
So Chief Gaylor, I'd like you to give me your thoughts on this. So we have a preponderance of folks that are a part of the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, whether they are a combat wounded veteran, maybe they had something seriously medically wrong that was getting fixed or is getting fixed right now. We have domestic assault victims. We have military sexual trauma victims. We have folks that have undergone major surgeries where it's debilitating toward life, even folks that are battling cancer, right? And so a lot of folks are eligible and fall under the Air Force Wounded Warrior umbrella, because at the end of the day, it's about how do we best take care of our family. That's what this program is about. It is centered around the family concept. For the folks that qualify for the program but have yet to walk through the virtual doors or sign up through woundedwarrior.af.mil, what would you say to encourage them for services and support that exist that you know of?
I would think I try to put myself on the other side of it, that I'm the one who has issues. I think the first thing I would want to be convinced is that somebody really cares and wants to help me. Because as long as I personally am thinking nobody gives a damn, I'm out there on the end of a limb on my own and nobody cares. I think the odds of me listening to any guidance or advice or suggestion is minimal. So I think somewhere, and that's, I have a talk I give called Bob's Magic Word. Bob's Magic Word. I have a word that is so magic, you can't define it with one other word. You need several words to define my magic word. And my magic word is rapport. You cannot define rapport with one word because it's respect, communication, trust, chemistry. It's all those things. But there's another key word, and that word is mutual. There cannot be one-way rapport. If I say, Jason, I'm very comfortable with you, and you say, well, I am not comfortable with you in one iota. Well,
I didn't say that, Chief Gaylor. I'm just for the record. You and I are good.
Yeah, rapport. Well, in that case, rapport doesn't exist. So now the question becomes how, I've seen people at Walmart across the aisle. I say, I like that person. I'd like to get to know them. Maybe it's just their face or something you hear them saying. And then other people like Gray, it might take months to find that magic connect. So, it's like the commander stands up at commander's call. Okay, listen up, airman. As of today, we have rapport by my order. It doesn't work. So, how do you establish that rapport? And I think it's a King and I song, getting to know you, getting to know, finding that avenue of communication that creates a comfort zone. It might be talking about, I understand you're a fisherman. Or did you get in around to golf this weekend? I go, I don't know. I don't have all those answers. But I don't know. I always took time in my ombudsman duties to convince myself that there was enough rapport. I would ask a 10-year-old kid, when you have a problem, who do you go to with that problem? If they say the teacher, and I say, what about mom or dads? And the kid said, no, they don't care. They don't even listen. I took a problem to them once and they said, you don't have a problem. And so a good question, if I come to you with an issue, that's the first indication that I feel you're interested in helping me. So I think what your program has managed to do during its existence is create the reality that we really mean it. We're here for you. We want to help you. And we're available.
I will champion that, definitely.
That's the first thing you did, because otherwise people go, oh, no, I'm not going to. Last time I did, they told me I was bothering them.
So Chief Gaylor, as an ambassador myself, I will tell you the support that not just myself, but my fellow ambassadors or fellow alumni in the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, we all have very similar stories. So I could tell you that Melissa Wiest, Sean Sprayberry, definitely the humble and charismatic John Fernandez. I throw these names out there because these are all paid employees by the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program. But something that the Air Force doesn't pay you for, just like you said, is building rapport with the folks that work with you. And I guarantee you that if you ask anyone at, let's say, an Air Force Wounded Warrior, athlete event, a resiliency event, or an ambassador or outreach program event, you can ask any of the folks that have been a part of the program once or still in the program. I think they all feel the same way, that the rapport is so strong that it's almost a no-nonsense effort to sign up. Like if you would have asked me to go back into the past 5 years ago, and if you asked me would I sign up again, I would say absolutely. Not because of the program necessarily, not because of the policies in place, but because the people who actually care, that make me feel that I'm heard. So I definitely resonate with what you're saying, Chief Gaylor.
Well, I don't think anyone should put their hand in there to work with the program unless they're really sincere. I can't. Any other motive would probably be ulterior. I think you have to truly be interested in in helping people. There's an excellent quote: "The more good things you do for others, the more good things will happen to you." So I really think I have found in my 91 years that a lot of good things that happened to me was done by people who maybe somewhere along the way I had reached out to in some small way. So I think what comes around goes around, but it's all in the area of caring and wanting to help people. Unfortunately a lot of people in leadership positions nowadays that shouldn't be, because they don't have that caring quality. They're either selfish or interested in other things. And 100 years ago, the Army tried the specialist program, where when you got to a certain rank like E5, you were defined as either work oriented, doing a job, you became a specialist. And if you had leader qualities, you became in a supervisory position. Well, I think their idea was good. I'm not sure it worked to the advantage they thought it would. But I think it does point out that some people just aren't meant to, yeah, they're not interested, or they don't have the characteristics to truly reach out and lead others for whatever reason. But in the Air Force, we promote people all the way to chief. You've met some who really the airmen never go talk to, because they say, no, he or she doesn't care. Or I did once and they cut me short. So unfortunately, there are some people. But when you tie the promotion system to it, you're not going to get a person moving up in rank to say, I don't have any leader qualities and I don't want to be promoted. Yeah, a person not going to say that.
So Chief Gaylor, I guess my question for you then, in the year of 2021, and you are 91 years young, and you have been a part of the Air Force family for most of your adult life, if not especially into your senior years, where you still have such gravitational pull. What are some pieces of advice for being a good leader, in your opinion? And obviously, we know that being a good leader never goes out of style. It doesn't get outdated, because I think the core concepts and the basics have remained true from the days when you were wearing your chevrons.
I turned to the man frequently quoted, Abraham Lincoln, to actually ask Abe what he considered to be the greatest leader trait. And of course, immediately the words courage, integrity, honesty, loyalty, all those great words immediately come to mind. But I think he surprised the listener, the questioner, when he said humility and humility. But he clarified, because he didn't want humility to be defined as a give in, as a milk toast, as a weaker, acquiescent, giving in. He said, I'm not talking about that. He said, humility is the confidence that you have in your own skills, that you're not threatened by the skills of others, and you have no need to bluster and boss people around, that you have the confidence in your skills and qualities that you don't have to do that. I sort of buy into that. And I don't know where a person gets that. I think I was helped at birth by being one of 8 kids. And so when you have 7 brothers and sisters, you can't go around pounding your chest, or they'll pound on your chest for you. Yeah, in a bad way. So I think you learn that each person brings to the table a quality of their own, a style and personality of their own. So I think I grew up with, I've never been a chest pounder. I've never been a bragger. I might do it in jest, I might say, "Oh, you should have seen the 6-iron I hit on number 14 last Saturday. Man, I stuck it a foot from the pin." Yeah, I might do that, but I do it with a smile because it's probably the only time I ever hit a 6-iron a foot from the pin. So yeah, so I like that. That's a good start, but when they name academies after you and plaster your name across the outside, Robert E. Gaylor, that's cause for going around saying, "You know who I am," or if you don't, I'm going to tell you. I would never be comfortable doing that.
Well, I think I could speak for most airmen where we say, especially at the PME institution, the NCO Academy at Lackland, that we're all very proud that your name is on the front of that building.
Oh, so am I. I am very proud, but I blend it with, I still say to myself, no matter what happened, I'm still Bob Gaylor from Mulberry, Indiana.
Hey, so speaking of Bob Gaylor, our one of my favorite chiefs that I've been able to speak to, especially on forums like this, if I was to give you an opportunity to let you say a message to not just the alumni association that belong to the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, but also the family members that are in support of Wounded Warriors, what would that message be for those people involved in this program and those who support it?
Yeah, the somewhere I imagine the answer is tied up in everything else you and I have said up until now. But I know in my growing up family and in my family now, I think there is an actual belief. I know there is a belief that we truly care about one another. Um, Sam and I had 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls, girl, boy, born in that order. Unfortunately, my second born, Eddie, developed renal issues and passed away at the age of 45 up in Austin, Texas. But my 3 kids, and you'd have to interview them, are very close. And there is no boasting. Look what I have that you don't. There is no one-upping. I don't know. I don't even know if I can take any credit for that. I don't know what I imagine I did, but like I say, you'd have to ask them. But you'd like to think, well, my wife and I must have done something. Yeah, so, but you can't wait until the kid's 40 years old and then say, "Okay, starting tomorrow, here's what you're going to do." So the word resilience, I've given that a lot of thought. I'm almost ready to say, if you don't have it and you need it, you're in trouble because you can't go buy it. And you can't suddenly say, "Okay, starting today, I'm resilient." It's a foundation. And like a tree, it's got to grow and the roots have to spread. I feel bad for people that either grew up in an atmosphere where they were given everything or they're spoiled or they were allowed to misbehave. And then they have issues like you deal with every day. And you and I then have to try to correct what apparently either happened or didn't happen up until today in their life. So I don't know. I think sometimes we portray resilience as if you don't have it, go get some. But my gosh, uh, I know families where a guy will even brag, "I haven't talked to my brother for 26 years. I don't even know where he lives." And my mind always says, how sad. That's sad. But it's none of my business. I don't ask him, "Well, what happened?" And when people say that, they seem content that it's that way, like it's a badge of honor. Yeah. That's unfortunate because family is so important and friends are so important.
I like that you brought up the family and the friends. And then again, you were kind of referencing the fact that resiliency is something that you can't just turn on yourself. You can't make up resiliency out of thin air because, as you said, it's foundational, right? One of the many benefits of the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, and no, they don't pay me for saying any of this. It's just because I believe in the program, as do the rest of the ambassador cadre. When you feel like you need someone to talk to, or you need someone to step you through potentially some of the hardest movements, actual movements in your life, whether that's exiting the Air Force, maybe going through a medical evaluation board, or maybe even returning back to duty when you thought that you weren't going to stay in the Air Force. These are huge life altering changes. And you do need to be resilient, but you also need support, right? And support to build that foundation that you might not have had growing up. But I'm here to tell you that you can get some of that, and you can get the nurturing and the care and the love that I think people deserve through trying times like that through AFW2. I know you feel the same way because we've talked about it in the past. My further comment for you though would be if I was to ask you one last question because I forgot to say something, Chief Gaylor. I know we don't have all the time in the world because you have a busy schedule. What would you tell me, good sir?
And this is a great conversation. You're truly on top of things, Jason. You're very articulate. Uh, Religion is such a personal thing that I rarely engage in discussing it because I think it's a person's right to decide. But I know personally, Bob Gaylor, in my prayer nightly, I ask the Lord for courage. I've often wondered if the doctor looked in my face and said, Chief, you have a terminal illness and it's not going to take long for it to kick in. I often wonder what I would say and do. I have no idea because it's never happened. But that's where my prayer for courage. I would hope, I know what I'd like to do. I would like to say, okay, well, yeah, whatever we have to do. I've had a great life. Uh, and the same way a person with any problem, what would you like to have happen? All of us go around saying, I'll tell you what I would do. I've often wondered, what would I do if an enemy in the trench across from me is shooting at me? I don't know what I'd do. It's never happened. I know what I'd rather not do. I'd rather not turn and run like a coward. I, my good friend John Levito, the Medal of Honor airman, he said when he did his heroic deed, two things kicked in over which I had no control. They just kicked in automatically. He threw his body on a lit flare in the back of an airplane at his own danger. He said discipline and training, discipline and training. So I think in the Wounded Warrior program, one of the questions along the way would be, what would you like to have happen? What would be your chosen outcome if you had a choice? And what are the odds of making it happen? Some people deal in any goal must be both, it has to be available. What would you like to do? I'd like to go to the moon. Well, you can't. I mean, there's no sense talking about that. There has to be an availability. So I think let's start at the basic level. What is the issue? Here's a great quote. When working toward the solution of a problem, it helps if you know what the problem is. Yeah, a lot of times supervisors in their zeal to help people, that's simple, just do this, and the person walks away saying, well, they downplayed the seriousness of this. So I think we have to be careful not finding the instant solution, just add water and swallow this.
I'm glad you said that. We've actually had some ambassadors in the past who had wounds, invisible wounds that weren't 100% apparent. And, when they brought them up to their leadership change, some of the supervisors went with the quick and easy solution and said, hey, just do this and it'll
Yeah.
go away.
Uh,
Kind of band-aiding, the root cause that you're talking about. And so, through further conversations, through people being just more aware that folks with mental illness, like, that is a thing that's not just inside someone's head that they're creating. It's a medical ailment, right? And that those folks need help. The Air Force Wounded Warrior Program accepts folks that are in that particular position as well. They can always find out more by talking to their primary care facility and or going to woundedwarrior.af.mil and hitting the apply button and see what qualifies for that. I do apologize, Chief Gaylor. I kind of took what you were saying and led him back to the website, but I'll bring it right back to you and let you, please, if you could, explain where it is that you want us to be in the future as airmen.
Oh, I think there's a great drill command in the drill manual. It's rarely used. Continue the march. It's when two flights are marching side by side and one of the flight instructors gives a command, and I don't want my flight to think I gave it. So I give the command, continue the march. It's telling my flight to. I think some things in life, like what you're engaged in, is continue the march. It's never ending. The scene shifts. There are new players. There are people out there that will avail themselves of your service that you don't even know they're out there. So the beat goes on. I just think that, and I think you deserve at the end of the day to say, sometimes it's hard to measure what good I did, but gosh, I feel like I did some good, I think. Yeah, we need that reinforcement so we're not jousting with windmills. Uh, yeah, I just think the beat goes on. I wish you could have been at my retirement dinner at Bowling Air Force Base, Washington. There were 400 or 500 people there, including Chief of Staff, Secretary of the Air Force, my mom and dad. And I said to the audience in my closing comment, as soon as you get home tonight, get your resume out, because in the morning, you'll be out looking for employment, because I see no way that the Air Force can keep going without me in it. And it got the big laugh, and I never thought that, but it was a nice comment. And then here I am now, 40 years later, and I'm saying the magnificence of the Air Force is that it truly did go on without me. And so your program, I think, will be around as long as there's a need for it. And I just have great respect for those of you who invest yourself in it. Not just time-wise, but morally and mentally and caringly. I just think you're very special, and I admire people that do that. Right now, our country, it's easy to see, turn on the TV and you'll see the crud of our country at work, bashing someone, hurting someone, stepping out of line. And it's easy to conclude that everyone in America is like that. I say less than 1% are. That the majority of people that I meet are God-fearing citizens of our great land. And unfortunately, when dog bites man, that's not news. When man bites dog, that gets the headline. And so unfortunately, that's the way news works. But every once in a while, I'll see on TV where somebody reached out to somebody in a very caring way, and you go there, you say to yourself, there's still hope, there's still a chance.
Hey, Chief Gaylor, I would like to thank you for spending time with us. Obviously, it is my distinct pleasure to be able to hang out with you for at least this past half hour and get some good laughs in. I would also like to personally thank you on behalf of Marcia Gonzalez and the rest of the AFW2 crew. Thank you, Chief Gaylor, for continuing the march.
Well, thank you. I had lunch with a few of them recently. They're my kind of people, I'll tell you that. And you do a great job. I think you found your niche, Jason. You do a great job of interviewing is not easy because you have to listen. First, you have to be a good listener and pick up on a comment and then pursue that. You do that so well. So, like always, the hour has flown by. I've enjoyed it, and I wish you the best.
As have I, sir.
That's it, folks. That's all we've got for you this month. Don't forget to catch us every second Tuesday of the month for new episodes of AFW2's Blue and Beyond podcast. We'll see you next month.